Hello and welcome back to another TEKDEP tutorial. My name is Nicholas and today we have a fun one. It is actually a first on the channel that we are doing a full top case swap on an A2442 MacBook Pro 14-inch. We had a customer come in. Unfortunately, they had a little bit of liquid damage. Now, liquid damage is not the end of the world. Luckily, they took the necessary precautions in order to make sure it didn't spread anywhere. However, there is residue on the keyboard and within the top case. Now, normally this is something that you can do with just a keyboard swap, but in this case, I think because of the nature of the spill, it might just be easier to do a full top case. And the customer's top case is also a bit damaged, so he took the opportunity and wanted to get a new one. But this is going to be a first, and it is a very extensive repair, so please follow along. All of the tools and all of the parts that are used in this will be in the link in the description here at TEKDEP.com. And if you want to send your computer in for a mail-in repair or want to follow along in this video and order some parts from us, feel free, because we have them all down in the description at TEKDEP.com. All right, let's get started. First, we are going to get all of our tools ready, and we are going to start by opening up the computer. The A2442 MacBook Pros, luckily, are actually compatible with the A2779 as well. So if you have a 14-inch MacBook Pro, a lot of the parts are the same. So if you do have an A2779, you can probably follow along this video enough. If not, and you don't feel comfortable, feel free to send it in. But we will start by unscrewing the 8 Apple pentalobe screws on the very bottom. Now, like I said about the size of them, the top ones are all going to be this medium size, and the bottom ones are all going to be the small. So that is how you will keep them apart and how you will know which place they go. Now, like any repair, and I've said this multiple times on multiple other videos, what I like to do is keep all of my screws in the order that we took them out. With these 14-inch MacBook Pros, there are a few tabs that we do need to get open, but you can do that by using your pry tool, going along the right and left side, pushing up until you hear a pop. And you're gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the other side, and push up until you hear a pop. And then you can get under it with your hands and pull up on the two less strong tabs that are down here. These ones are easier to pull. Once you've done that, you're going to put one hand on the left side here and then your thumb here, and you are going to push in both directions until the case comes off. Now, the first thing we do with any repair is we are going to start by discharging the power. In order to do that on the 14 inches, we do have to undo the trackpad flex cable, and we can do that by starting right in the middle with this little protective cover. Once we have undid the protective cover, you're going to get under it with your pry tool, pop open the flex trackpad cable, put it to the side safely, and then underneath there's going to be the battery flex cable, which we need to take off in order to discharge the battery. It has a little latch that you're going to get under and pop up, and then you're going to get under the cable and gently pull it out. It can be a little snug. Don't pull too hard. These flex cables are very fragile, but it has the same little latch that you're going to pop up and then pull the cable very gently out from beneath. And now there is two more steps when you are discharging the computer. There is the pancake screw that is holding down the motherboard connection to the battery. We are going to lift up the tab that is connecting the positive and negatives. And then, last but not least, is we do have to discharge all of the power from the computer. And the way we do that is simply by holding the power button for about 10 seconds, just to discharge any extra battery power that is in the computer, and that way we do not fry anything when we are working on it. And once that is done, the computer is fully discharged and we are able to work on it safely. Now, that being said, a top case replacement is essentially like rebuilding the entire computer. We have to take off the display, we have to take out the motherboard, we have to take off all of the components on the sides, and we have to take off the Wi-Fi antenna and speakers. The only things that we are not taking are the battery and keyboard. Everything else needs to go, including the trackpad. The easiest way to start is by getting out the most important piece first, which is the logic board. And the logic board is going to be probably the most intensive of everything, and there are going to be a lot of screws that go with it. So it is very important that we follow along every detail. And then, like I said, the screws that we take off are going to be the screws that we put back in. So if you put them down in a line and start from the bottom when we're putting it back together, it is a lot easier. And keeping them all grouped together with a clean space is definitely the move to go to. But you can always take a photo of everything, which is something you can do, or you can reference back to this video here and you should be good to go. But let's start by taking off the motherboard. What I like to do when I start by taking off the motherboard is by taking off all of the protective casings first and then undoing all of the flex cables that are holding it together. I will start left to right just to make things easy. Now up here we have one singular USB-C Thunderbolt, and then this is the Touch ID sensor cable. These are both of your display cables, and then also your Wi-Fi antenna. Now your display protective housing, both of them are the same exact size and the same exact screws, so these ones can be grouped together. And then there are 3 screws holding down the Wi-Fi antennas. Also the same screws, so you can keep these together as well. On the right side, we're going to have, I believe, the camera flex cable, which is connected to the display, the power cable, the MagSafe 3 charging cable, 2 USB-C Thunderbolts, and then the auxiliary cable. And then go ahead and do a double check just to make sure that there are no other protective housings that you can see on the unit. And then once you have double checked, because there aren't, now we will start by undoing all of the flex cables around it. And again, we will start left to right. So we will undo. Now be very gentle with these because these flex cables are fragile. You also do not want to damage the pins that are connecting them all together. So you really just want to get under it so it can latch up and then push it a little bit away. That way it's not directly still on it and there's some friction or no friction between. And then these Wi-Fi antennas are super simple to take off too. You just simply slide under it and it will pop right off. No issue there. And then we will move on to the right side with the camera flex cable, the power, the USB, auxiliary, and now there are a lot of the other ones that we do have to take off, and these ones are a little more specific. So with them, they have like a little pull tab that you pull away, and then the little protective plastic that you have to pop up, and then you can get under it gently with your smudger and pry tool. Same with your speaker cable, and then your fan. There is the keyboard cabling, the other fan and other speaker, And then go ahead and do another double check just to make sure you got everything. I'm doing this just to keep you aware that there are things that you will miss, and there are things that I miss pretty regularly as well. So as long as you take a moment to look at the board and make sure everything looks exactly like mine, then you should be able to repair this with no issues. All right, now after that, we are going to start by taking off all of the screws. This may be one of the more important parts of the repair because all of these screws, unfortunately, are all different, and each one has a different place to go. So when we're taking off all of the screws, it's important to have them placed in a certain way to know where they will go once you put the board back together. We are going to real quick, there are 4 screws that are under these little stoppers, so we will take these stoppers off with your little pry tool and take off the motherboard. Now we will start by unscrewing everything that we need to be unscrewed. This can be a little tricky because there are different sizes for different parts, so I guess we can just start with the top 2 because the top 2 are going to be the biggest out of everything. So the top screws are going to be the biggest out of all of them, so you can keep them together that way, and it's going to be a T6 screwdriver. And then put them together with the rest of yours. And now I'm going to start in the order that I'm taking everything off. By putting the screws to the side and then doing my best to let you know where they go on the reassembly. After that, the rest of the ones in the middle are T4. So there are a few here that are related to the heatsink on both sides, and then there are the 4 in the middle that are holding it down. And then I believe I missed a couple, but there are, along with the top T6 screw, there's also a middle T6 screw, and that's going to be on both sides as well. And they are both going to go on these little silver patches. So that is one way you can remember them as well. And then same exactly. This one is a T4. It's going to be along this row down here. There are 4 of them. 2 are T4, and they are a bit longer as well. And once you have all of that done, you have taken out all of the screws that are going to be on your motherboard. And the motherboard, we're able to take off. We're going to make sure that all of the cablings are off to the side as to not damage any. Very gentle with everything. And then we're going to take our pry tool, go ahead and put it under the right side. We're going to pry under the right hand side, and with our other hand we will grab over here. We're going to be very gentle and be pushing away the areas of tension on some of the cablings as to not bend the motherboard, because this motherboard is going to go back into our top case. Bending the motherboard is very bad, so you want to make sure you are very gentle and also not pulling on any of the other cables. And there we go. With that, you have taken out your motherboard successfully, and we will set that to the side on a very safe platform as to not get damaged, because we are going to be reusing that, and it is probably the most important part of the entire computer. All right, now that the motherboard is out, everything else is pretty straightforward. That is the one that has the most amount of crazy screws and the honestly most nerve-wracking part to take out because it is probably the most expensive piece. Everything else is relatively easy. We're going to start by doing the two fans are going to just have two sets of screws, one being a T4 and the other being a T3. Both of them have the same exact set of screws, so we can kind of keep them all together to make things less cluttered. The two left side of the fans and the right side are both going to have, so we can keep all of these together. And then the right side, there's only one T4 and 3 each of the T3 screws. And then the only one that is different is the top right one, which is the T4 on top right and top left, I guess. But with that, we are able to simply pull out our fans with no issue. And we can set them to the side. Now, with our motherboard, there is an important piece that is linked to the motherboard, and that right here is the Touch ID sensor. Every Touch ID sensor is linked to the corresponding motherboard and would need to be kept together, or else it will not work. Now with this, it does have a little flex cable that is very fragile, and it is glued to the top here. So we do need to get under it and be very careful that we do not damage anything. And remove the adhesive that is under it very, very carefully. Because if you damage this, your Touch ID sensor will not work. Your motherboard will still work, but no more Touch ID sensor for you. So please, please, please be very careful. And you're just gonna get under it, move slowly in a sideways direction like this, and that will slowly, because if you do, and it lets go on the tension and you push forward, it will hit the flex cable and possibly damage it. Now the trackpad case has 4 screws on it, but first thing we need to do is there is this little case that is on top of it, and we need to undo this screw here at the end. If you can kind of see at the very top, this will allow us to move. Sometimes if there's not enough tension, you do have to get to this secondary screw, and that way we can pull out this little piece of metal that is hiding some of the screws that we need to take off. If you need to take off a bit more tension, you can. If not, we can always hold off on that and just start by taking off the display. Now, the display is rather easy. We are going to start by taking out the antenna and these two protective hinge covers over here, and then that will free up the display in order for us to take it off. Now, there are a lot of screws that go with it in the order that we take them off. On the right and left side, there is a T4 screw, and it is a really long one. This is going to be the same one on both sides. And we are going to keep these together in the order that we took them off, specifically for the antenna. And then we are going to move to the other T4 screws. There are 4 of them, and they do look different. They're a bit wider and a bit smaller. And there are 4 of them that are holding the display flex cables together. And these are all going with the antenna, so we'll keep them all together. And then there are pentalobe screws, but it is the smallest pentalobe screw, so the PL1. If you do not have a good screwdriver for these, there is a possibility that they will get stripped, so I highly recommend getting some kind of really nice screwdriver because they are super, super fragile. So please be careful. But at the end of the day, if you do break them, we do have them on our website and we are able to ship them to you, so there's no problem there. They are tiny, so keep them all together. These are probably the most fragile screws in the entire computer. There are 9 of them, And they do get lost easily. So if you lose one and you don't count 9, well, you might never find it because they are super, super tiny. There we go. And with that, the last step is to take off the 2 outer hinges. And then go ahead and simply pull out the antenna. And then remove the hinges as well. Next step, we're going to take off the T8 screws that are holding together the hinges on the display. We'll start with the left side. They are on there a bit tight, so you will have to apply a good amount of pressure, but if you have the correct screw, you should not have an issue with stripping. So just make sure that you are using a T8. We'll go back to the middle here. These 2 hatches, or these 2 protective covers that are going over, as you can see here, the flex cables going to the display. All we're going to do is just get under them and push them up. They are one piece together, so you do not have to take them off. If we were swapping the display, you would, and then you'd have to re-put them on. But in this case, since we're reusing the display, but under it are these 2 little foam parts that we will take out, because these ones we're going to reuse for the new top case that we're going to be putting on. After you're done with that, we can now take off the display. All we need to do to take off the display is simply extend it as so. Slowly start to separate it from the hinges. It is a bit tight. Don't apply too much pressure to each side. Now this is an interesting one. So this has a bit of bend here. I don't know if you can see, it's a bit tight, but some of them, especially this one, which was dropped in the past, has a little bit of damage. But if you go slow, actually you can see the bend is a little bit in the display side. So this will be a bit more specific to get off. Yours will be easier, but unfortunately this display does have a bit of damage, it looks like. Now I think I've found out a way to do it. So instead of going directly off, we're just going to get one side and then slide the other hinge out, as so. And then there we go. We're able to separate the bent damage display from the top case. Look at that. That was an interesting little thing that popped up. Not every repair will be like that, so don't hold that to the highest standard. With this, we can now finish taking out the Touch ID from the other one, and with that, we are going to take off T3 screw that is holding down that, which we will be reusing for the other top case. And then here, we just take off all of the T3 screws that are holding it together, and then keep them all together. 2 of them are a different size. Those 2 are going to go on the very middle, but these 2 are going to go on last when we put it together, because these are mainly used to center it. The other 4 are to hold it into place with the protective casing that's on top, so we are able to keep it in while we are centering it. And then with that, it should just fall right out the bottom. Be very careful with this flex cable. It is a common thing that these get damaged, so just when you are taking it out, make sure to be very careful with the flex cable, as it is super fragile. All right, with all that out, there are a few more things that we do need to take out of the main top case. One being the 2-side speakers, which can be a little tricky, so we will go slow with those, and then the rest being the outer I/O. So we'll go ahead and do those. There's going to be a T4, 2 T4s, and we'll keep these together, and then we will move on to the right I/O, starting with the MagSafe 3, which is going to be 2 T4s as well. But we will take the screws because it looks like it doesn't have any screws to go with it. So we will leave the MagSafe 3 in this case. Yours might not always be that way, but probably on a lot of these newer ones, they are with the board itself. And then the other 2 USBs. Now, all these USBs are universal, so it doesn't matter where they get put back, and they can be all swapped out individually, which is nice. So if one goes out, you don't have to replace multiple. With the auxiliary on the side, there is a longer one, which is going to go on the bottom screw, and a shorter one, which is going to go on the top one. So that's something to keep in mind. Those together. And now we will go ahead and take off the trackpad. Now, the trackpad is a little specific. So there are a bunch of screws that are associated with it. Those all need to come off before taking off the trackpad. They're going to be all along the outside. We will undo all of them for removing the trackpad from it. And then these 2 more in the middle as well. When you are taking the trackpad out, there are little silver washers that kind of sit there in order to keep it from grinding against the top case. Those washers will need to be on these certain areas, and I'll kind of explain what I mean by that. But to separate the trackpad from it, you simply just lift it up, move the top case out of the way so it's all together. And then as you can see, there are these little ones here. Those need to go on the screw holes, and there are 4 doubles and then 2 singles on each of them. Basically, it just keeps it so it does not, they are magnetic, which is nice, but it keeps it so there's no grinding when you are tightening the unit down. And we'll keep this all together because this trackpad flex cable goes with it, and we're going to keep all of them. All right, and then we are basically done. So everything that we need to take out of this top case is already out besides these speakers. Now, the speakers are a little tricky because they do have adhesive. What we are going to do is we are going to attempt to separate it from the adhesive by sticking your pry tool underneath and going very slow as to not damage the bottom side of it. All right, isopropyl alcohol is a good tool as long as you know what you're doing and know what you can and can't do. So while you have a live board or live electricity running through anything, of course, any liquid on it is going to damage it. But in this case, everything is shut off. There's no live electricity going on in it, and we can use isopropyl alcohol, which is 99%, to get rid of the adhesive that is under it. You can also use it to clean boards. A lot of people don't know that. Wouldn't recommend doing it yourself, but it is something that is possible. In this case, we're just going to use it to get rid of the adhesive that is going to be on the bottom. And we are going to dip it in between the areas here. That way it goes underneath, and I'll zoom in a little bit just so you can see. That way it goes underneath the speaker and wets the adhesive. And we can even do it on the other side as well. And then we'll let that sit for a little bit and do the same thing to the other side. This is a good way to get batteries off too. But like I said, your board needs to be discharged. You can do it when the board is still connected and on the top case, but it needs to be discharged. If there is any live electricity going through, that will cause damage and will break the very expensive electronics that are connected to it. And the cool thing about isopropyl alcohol is it dissolves very fast. So in this case, I have a little bit of evaporates very fast. But on this case, I have a little drop that's on top of it. All you have to do is just blow on it and it evaporates right away. You can do this with a hair dryer, a little squeeze air thing that you use to clean electronics, and with it, the speaker. will have to replace this adhesive, which is rather easy. You just need to really purchase any adhesive, something that is non-conductive, and then we will go ahead and replace it. We have some on our website, so if you're looking for adhesive to replace, feel free to check on our website and we will go ahead and be able to offer you that service. If not, if you don't want to go through the hassle, we have adhesive here and it costs no extra if we do the repair, so we'll definitely have it on our end. There we go. One out, on to the next one. So batteries, speakers, a few other things that they use adhesive for will all come off with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. And there we go. And now we have successfully taken apart our old top case that had the liquid damage in the keys. And now we will install our new top case. Every new top case that you get from TEKDEP.com has been tested rigorously and will come in our packaging. And with it comes our warranty. Our warranty is a limited warranty within the first year, but the first few months are all covered under our full warranty. So if you get anything from us that is defective or has some type of issue, feel free to bring it back or send it in if it is a mail-in, and we will cover the entire cost of replacing it and everything like that. The limited warranty, which is after the first few months, which lasts up to a whole year, as long as it's not damaged, and this goes for everything, as long as it's not damaged, we will still take it in and we will give you a deductible of $20 as well as the new part to go with it. But the new part will be a charge, of course, because it is a limited warranty. The labor is what is discounted. And here we go. We can get started on reinstalling the new top case. Now we will start with the ones that we left off on, which are the speakers. Now the speaker installation is rather simple. All you need is some kind of two-sided tape, preferably the non-conductive ones. The back about yay big, and you will cut the size on most of them. If it is a little bit off, you can always trim it to size. And we will do the same for the other one. And then once that is done, and press down firmly, and do the same with the other side, and then same thing. We have applied our speakers to the new top case. Make sure that the washers are all lined up before screwdriver, and we are only going to screw in 4 of the trackpad screws. The 4 corners slightly, so not all the way. Now with that, we're going to flip it over and get it all centered. With this one, it looks like the top. Hold it together and push up on it, that way nothing gets misaligned, and if you apply pressure, it should stay where it left off. Tighten all 4 corners. Now we have a center trackpad. We can continue, screw in the rest. There we go. With the trackpad installed, we can now move on to the display. Now the display is going to be a little tricky because remember this one is a bit bent, but learning from what we learned taking it off, we should just be able to slide in the bent side and then push over the other side. One thing to take note is that these flex cables here will need to be on the inside of it. So if you're putting it on and you don't see the flex cables, it means they are on the other side. Take it off, fold them up, make sure they are placed on this side, and then put in the display. Be very careful, as with every flex cable on an Apple computer, they are very, very fragile. But with this, because it has a bent side, we're going to slide in one side first and then pull over the other side. Remember, the screws are going to be a T8 and they are the biggest screws in the whole bunch. They will match the color of your unit, so if you have a different color unit, close it up. And now we will screw back all of the rest of our hinge screw. All right, next course of action is to go ahead and screw on the Touch ID sensor that we took off before. This is probably just the best time to do it. Place it ever so gently. And once all 4 are screwed on, the last 2, which are going to be like the bigger ones of the 6 that we took off, we're not going to screw them in all the way. So once they are screwed in about halfway, we're going to take a look. The sensor and make sure that it is on and center. And with that, we're just going to tighten and we are good to go. Re-put on our little protective housing that goes on top, which is where our adhesive goes, and the 2 screws that go on that. And now we're going to move around the outside and get all of the I/O put back in. So we'll start with the first USB I/O that we took off, and the 2 screws that we took off of the MagSafe charger, the next USB-C I/O, and the last USB-C, the auxiliary. Now remember, the auxiliary has 1 longer screw and 1 shorter screw. A longer screw will go first at the very bottom. We can also take our little pads that go under the cables for our display and put them in as well. Place in, I've found the easiest way to do this is to put them in first, slide the cables that go under around the back of it, and then put it over into lining up with the holes. That works the best for me. Next, we will put on the hinges, because the hinges go on before the antenna, the Wi-Fi antenna. And then the dark screws that go along with it. And most of the time, Apple doesn't make schematics that show every single part like an IKEA replacement. So, easiest way to do it is putting everything next to each other. That way you have no issue knowing what is for what. Now fans can go in. So the left fan will have the longer hinges on that side, and vice versa. The right fan will have longer hinges on that side. 2 of the bigger screws that are T4 are going to be top right and the top left. All the rest of them are going to be the smaller T3 screws that are skinnier. And now the antenna. The antenna just slides in nice and easy, and there are a few screws that we need to remember to screw in. So the 2 longer ones are going to go on the right and left side. And then the next ones are the shorter T4 screws, all silver, and they're going to go in the 4 screws that connect the protective, and then 9 small screws that are going to go into antenna is completely installed. We are just about finished. The very last and most important thing to install now is the logic board. Now this one is a little tricky. It can go on only one way, so you are going to essentially make sure that you slide it in along the left hand side and then individually pull up each and every one of these around it. So first we're going to lift up the little flap here, which kind of holds your motherboard on top of your fan, and then insert the HDMI and SD card reader. Once you've gotten all of that out, the next thing on this side is just to make sure that the underneath fan connector is pulled out, which you can get under with your smudger. Once all of that is out, there are a few more things. We need to make sure that let's move cameras so you can see the other side. There we go. Don't forget the bottom here. This is going to be your keyboard cables. Now, what I like to do before I screw anything in is I like to center all of the flex cables on the board because these flex cables are going to be the most tricky. I like to put them on before screwing in any of the major holes because it can get a little off-centered depending on what you are doing. So I'm going to go around and just place all of the flex cables that have these pins, and there we go. Once we have all that in, now we can start by screwing in the motherboard screws. Like we took them off, we're going to put them back on in that same order. The rest of them are going to go all around the middle. So we can just go ahead and install actually we'll start from where we left off, from right to left, since everything is bottom to top. So we'll start on this side. Make sure everything is plugged in. Make sure all of the protectors are on. Make sure there is no damage. Make sure that what you are looking at looks exactly like mine. The hinges, the antenna, the display cables, all of it being flush. Take a few moments and make sure that everything is looking correctly, because you do not want to put everything back together, turn it on, have it not turn on, and now you got to undo it and find out what you messed up. But once you've done that for a good few moments, we can go ahead and reinstall the pancake screw, which connects the motherboard battery flex cable. Start all the way in and then latch it down. And then ensure it is all the way in, and then latch it down. Throw on the trackpad flex cable, and then the protective case. And now your back plate, which the way it works is it has these areas here that need to go to the corresponding areas here. So you will put it on at so, where there's a little bit of a edge here. Then you will push it from this side in. All of that is there, and then push down on the right and left and the middle, so it is all flush. The final screws. Then and with everything reinstalled, we are now ready to test the device. Go ahead and give it some power. Press the on button. Wait for it to boot up. Ensure that everything was transferred correctly and the keyboard and trackpad are all working. Trackpad working. We'll test it with the Wi-Fi. And keyboard working with no issue. And there we go. We have now replaced a MacBook A2442 top case. Now, this is a very specific repair, but I do think it is important because if there is more liquid damage that is not just related to your keyboard, this is the only way to get rid of it. And now you have a full tutorial as well as all of the parts linked in the description below. And if you watch it all the way through, you don't think you feel comfortable enough to go ahead and do it, that's completely okay. We have mail-in repairs, or if you're local, feel free to bring it into our shop here in Los Angeles, California. We have Mac technicians in every day, and we can usually get these done same day that we get them. So feel free, come on in, see if we can help you out. If not, and you just watched the video for informational purposes, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Nicholas. Have a wonderful day.